Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be doing my May wrap up, and I'm going to be showing you everything that I read in the month of May. So let's just go ahead and get started. So the first thing I read in the month of May, well, these aren't in any particular order because I don't remember what order I read it in, but the first book I'm going to mention is The Designated Ugly Fat Friend, The Duff by Kody Keplinger. And this is also a movie, and I had watched the movie before I read the book, and I feel like that probably plays into how much I enjoyed the book. I liked the book. I did not love the book. I feel like I couldn't help but compare the book to the movie. I did enjoy the movie more. The book is definitely goes a bit more intense, a bit darker. It's way more grown up, a lot more sexiness and stuff happening up in here. And also I feel like the book, I don't know, like when I finished watching the movie, I was like, I felt a lot of positive things, and when I finished reading the book, I really didn't feel a ton of positive things, and I was really kind of second guessing how I felt about the characters. And you know, I've told you guys before that when I finish a book, I normally try to write down what I'm feeling in that moment, and all I could get out of this is that I felt conflicted and jumbled, because I try to write down like, okay, this is how I feel about this part of the book, but then I'd contradict it, and I just couldn't get a straight feeling with this. I thought I was going to love this book, but I think that part of my enjoyment had to have definitely been affected by the movie, because I kind of went in with a sense of who these characters were and what these characters were like, and then they weren't like that in the book. I don't think that the book was bad. I just feel like I just really wasn't expecting what I got. There were some aspects of the book that I really did like, so I don't know if I gave this I think I might have gave it a 3 stars, because I liked it, I just didn't love it. And because I love the movie so much, I thought I would just love the book. There were some aspects that I liked. I really liked the fact that we really saw more of the family aspect, and then we really got to see the effect that that had on Bianca. If you don't know what this book is about a 17-year-old girl named Bianca Piper, and basically she's found out that she is the one out of her friends that is considered the designated ugly fat friend. She's the one that's considered kind of the oddball out. And you know, in high school, I feel like that's such a traumatic thing, and I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling of feeling like you don't belong, or feeling like the ugly one, or just not being as confident in yourself. And you know, how do you get to that place where you learn to be confident in yourself? So I do love the general premise of this book, but I didn't love the book. So I was pretty let down by this. I was, because I was like, oh, I'm gonna love this. I don't know, but this is also one that I feel like I might need to revisit at another time. Like maybe don't watch the movie for a while and try this book again, because I had high hopes for this book. So I don't know. If you're watching this and you're like, so what do you feel? I feel jumbled and confused. I still cannot figure out how I feel. And I had been putting off filming my wrap up because I was trying to get a clear thought on how I feel, and I don't have one for this one, you guys. I was disappointed. So yeah. And then the next thing that I read is by Maya Angelou, and this is Letter to My Daughter. I always want to say Letters to My Daughter, but it's Letter to My Daughter. And I liked this book. I did. I feel like, so this book basically is a ton of small essays that Maya Angelou has written about different experiences in her life. There were some that, if I'm going to be honest and say, I didn't fully get them. So that might be something I need to get as I grow. But then there were some that really just hit home for me. And there were some that really made me stop and think and reflect. And overall, I did really enjoy this book. I think this is definitely one of those books, and I said this in my review on Goodreads, that depending on where you are in your life, different stories are going to stick out to you. Another thing she did in here is she told the stories without really reflecting. So she just tells you about specific incidents in her life. And she does not tell you, like, this is what I learned. She doesn't really say this is what I learned. She doesn't show you how she applied that later on in life and other instances where maybe this was helpful for her or anything like that. And she specifically says in the beginning of the book that she's doing that because, she wants the reader to kind of take these incidents in her life and figure out what you can get out of them and how can you apply that to your life. And I thought that was kind of powerful in a way, but at the same time I could see that being disappointing for some people, especially if you were looking for, like, here's the incident in my life and then here's what I learned and here's how I reflected on it and here's how, you know, these things can be applied. Because I can see how that could be helpful too. I think it makes you reach a little bit deeper in yourself when you don't get that and you just get, here's this incident, and you know, you read some of the incidents and you can clearly see like, oh, you really messed that up, or oh, you really, you know, you did good with that, you know, but you have to kind of pull what you need from it and figure out how to apply that to your life if applicable, you know. So it's definitely a book that I think will make you dig into yourself a bit, make you reflect, make you think. And I'm a very reflective person, so I tend to enjoy that. But I will say that this was one of those where certain ones I was just like, I don't know that I'm going to get that at this point in my life. And there were other ones where I was like, you know, yeah, I can apply that to my life for sure. So I did enjoy this book. Okay, and then the next book that I read is I Am the Messenger by Markus Zusak. Now I've heard a ton of people talk about this book. Here it is right here. But in particular, I think the person who sold me on this is Tori from That Cozy Book Nook. And she talked about how much she loved, she talked about how much she loved this book. And I was like, I want to love it too. And I'm going to be honest with you. I did not love this book for so long while I was reading it. And I think this book, I'm so glad I didn't DNF it though, because punchline, I love this book. But I was like, oh man, what's happening this month? Like, because I just felt like I was reading books that, nothing that I was like, I love this, you know? And so I was reading this book and I don't know, it was hard for me. It was hard for me. So this book is about Ed Kennedy. He's an underage cab driver, and he's kind of at a point in his life where he's just like in a rut and things aren't great, and everybody around him is kind of just in a rut, living very, I guess what people would consider mediocre lives. Like nobody's doing anything particular. Every time they describe something, it just all sounds like, if this is average, then they're somewhere down here. Like, I don't know, just shitty in a way. Like their lives are just kind of shitty. Like there's no other word for it. And so as I was reading it, I don't know, I was like, okay, it wasn't what I was expecting. So I was like, okay, what's happening here? And I read the first part, and then by the end of the first part, because this book is written like broken down into parts, so by the end of the first part it got intense and I had to put the book down because I was like, what have I got myself into? But at the same time, because I felt like this book went a little dark. Not scary, but just dark. If you've read it, you know what I mean, I hope. And so by the end of the first part, I was like, I don't know what I've gotten myself into. And I wasn't loving it. I wasn't even particularly liking it. Something about it I was drawn to. You know, and I was trying to figure out like what that was that I was drawn to. And I also didn't want to give up on the characters. So fast forward. Reading, it's starting to get a little bit better. I get to the third part and I was like, oh man, I feel like, I don't know, it was almost like the book was slow for me or something up until then, and then it took off. And it's like there were parts where the book was slow but it was intense at the same time. And I found this, by the end of it, to be a very powerful read, and such a unique way that this book is written, and the way everything is kind of sewn together, and the way it comes together in the end. Like, oh my goodness, I really enjoyed this book, and I was so glad for that, because at one point I really was like, I think I might have to DNF this book, because I didn't know what I was supposed to be feeling, but I felt like everything I was feeling was contrary to what I thought I would be feeling with this book. I was expecting such a powerful narrative, and then I just felt like I wasn't getting that. Instead, I was getting this guy who just kept talking about his shitty life, and he at the same time didn't want to do anything about it. And so I was like, what are we doing here? But honestly, no. You really need to go through that process in order to truly appreciate everything that takes place and where we end up, you need to go through that, and you really need to sit with that. And another thing I would say is, somebody that's at a point in her life where I'm moving on to the next phase of my life, it was hard for me to sit with this character at such a strange and conflicting and confusing place in his life. But there were some moments in here and some messages in here that were just so powerful and so beautiful. And I think this story really touches on personal growth, and how hard and mournful personal growth is, and how nobody really talks about how much mourning goes into personal growth. Giving up who you thought you were going to be, giving up who you thought you were, what you thought you were going to do, and just really going after who I am now and how do I move on to the next. Like this, I end up really loving it, and thank God, because I did not feel that way. I've never had a story where I was getting so close to the end and I still couldn't tell you how I felt about it. But this is one that I'm glad I stuck out for, because I did absolutely enjoy it, and I would highly recommend it. And then the final 2 books that I read, I'm going to kind of talk about these together because they are the first 2 books in the series, and I have one more book left to read. This is this is To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han. This is the first book in the To All the Boys I Loved Before trilogy, and then the second book is P.S. I Still Love You. These couldn't have come at a better time in my reading, because I needed to love a book. These were the last 2 books that I read of the month. I do remember that, and I was at the place where I really needed to feel very connected to a character, because also, especially with this, you know, I really couldn't connect to where that character was in his life. I could appreciate it, but I couldn't connect. And you know, this book is about a young girl, and she is in high school. I think she's about 17 years old, and her name is Laura Jean. And so basically Laura Jean writes letters to guys, but she never intends for them to get them. It's kind of like her just getting her feelings out there. Well, one day her letters are mailed out, and the story takes off from there. And what can I, like, everything about this, I'm planning to do a series review, but what I will tell you is that I love the story. I enjoyed the characters felt real to me, the stories felt real to me. I loved the family dynamic in here. I feel like it's not a ton of books where you really get to know the family just this well, and there's such a major part of a story. Like, the family is so present, and there's highs and lows, but I enjoyed it so much. Like I said, I do want to do a series review on it, so I don't want to talk a ton about it, but know that I absolutely love these, and they also cracked me up. Kitty, the young sister in here, oh my goodness, she is a force, and I love Kitty so much. She is so... Kitty just does what Kitty wants to do, and I love that. I really do. So I absolutely love these. I will be reading the 3rd book, and then I'm going to go ahead and do a trilogy review on these, non-spoiler, and just give you my thoughts. So hold out for that. And that is everything that I read in the month of May. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I would love to know what you read in the month of May, and I will see you guys as always in the next video. Thank you so much for your time. Bye.